Welcome to the Berks Homes podcast, the business of building homes. I'm Katie. I'm here with my brother Ben, and today we are talking about budgeting, what it means to have a budget when it comes to home building. This is a really thrilling topic for everyone, I'm sure. We've talked about this a little bit before, and we both actually love the process. And I think we need to get into why we actually love the process of budgeting today. We've got an interesting angle to talk about right now. Actually, we should back up a little bit.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
We took
It's only been about 2 months.
Yeah, it was about 2 months break. Because we are working hard.
Yeah. Yeah, we were working hard before. But now we're working extra hard.
Different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we took a little break in the spring and said sometimes you got to work on the business to talk about the business of building homes.
And now,
And then we really got into it.
Really took a hard left there into the work.
Yeah. And the reason we can get so far into the weeds with the budgeting is because some of the things that are going on. First, the fact that you're so involved with the regional side of the business again.
Yeah.
And going to be leading the charge when it comes to the first part of budgeting.
Right. The settlement forecast.
Yes. So let's kind of get into that. What is the overall step one when it comes to setting a budget for home building and the timing of it? Why are we talking about it already?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have a little over 3 months, so one quarter left, one plus 1 week in this year, and our business plan really starts basically in the third quarter of every year for the following year,
right? Because
of the housing cycle, the build cycle. So we can't operate on a normal fiscal year
annual
like most businesses, because we're already selling things that will be produced in the following year. So we need to be looking way ahead constantly. And specific to our business as a production home builder, where we have land assets and that we purchase well in advance or make deals well in advance, you're always having to look at this cycle in, let's just say, 18-month increments.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it really well, 3 to 5 years. So right now is really at the end of September, we are starting the top line of our budget, the settlement budget. So settlement budget is which neighborhoods do we have that we will produce revenue in that calendar year 2025. And our job as regional people, the people on the front lines, we want to predict exactly how much revenue, how many settlements in each month in each community we're going to have, and start there and build our budget all the way down from the top. So revenue all the way down to net profit. And generally you're making, some predictions without specific information, hiring, land acquisition. Some of that stuff needs to be produced in a vacuum because you just won't have all that information at all times. You need to be predictive. But the most critical thing that we do for our expense side is predict the revenue side, obviously.
Right. Yeah. So that sounds very complicated from everything that you were just saying. So what's a look behind the curtain? How do you predict in August, September of the prior year how many homes you will sell in what communities?
So we operate on a regional scale. We have 3 regions, 3 offices. So we have 3 offices that each are what we call profit center, or they each have their individual business plan with teams, right? And when we make land deals, they're predictable in the sense that they're set out with a pace of either purchasing a certain amount of lots ahead of time, call them bulk takes, which we don't like to do that much, or at a even pace throughout, the project. So we start with pro forma on each project.
A land pro forma.
A land pro forma, which tells us what we can purchase the land for, the lots.
What we think the value would be.
What we think the value is over a certain period of time. Typically, they're multi-year projects. And so sometimes they're multi-phase. And so you have to be even more dialed in because you're going over 2, 3, 4 years. And every project has a pace associated with it where we distill from all the information, the market data, and, what we feel like the potential is. We say we can sell this many of this product in this neighborhood each month. And a lot of our projects have multiple product in them as well. Townhouses, single family detached, or duplexes / twins. And we say we're predicting the value and the amount of homes we're going to sell each month. And it's never perfect. Usually we're close.
That is a art science mix if there ever is one in our business.
Yes.
There's something, I would say, the magic happens with predicting those land pro formas as well as our sales piece.
Yeah.
Between the two of those things, that's where you have to be an artist and a scientist.
Yeah.
And you have to go back and forth between the two at all times.
You got to use the data, the science side, as much as possible. And then at the end of the day, you make a deal based on the art of it.
Right.
The feel, the upside. And when you get into any kind of geopolitical situation / economy situation, whatever unknowns there are out there, the more conservative you generally get.
Right.
And I would say since COVID hit, you could throw out 10 different times where you're just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this all the time. I mean, it's got to stop or slow down or change, and then it doesn't.
Right.
It does, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
The rates went up and all, and that changed things, but it didn't tremendously. All those fundamentals that we hang our hat on have generally stayed somewhat consistent.
Yeah.
But as it goes on and on and on, we talked about this before with the 7 to 9, 10-year real estate cycles, and we're like in year 14.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, this just threw out all the rules.
Yeah. And even talking about geographical constraints that used to be just like a given. Yeah. And then us saying, are they still? Like, is a C market going to become a
work
B?
From home?
Yeah. But now, that keeps going back and forth too. Yeah. Some people are still saying, yeah, that's the best thing since sliced bread. And now you're also starting to hear, again, it comes in waves. Well, big corporations are going to start requiring people to be coming in the office again because of morale. And people like going into the office. That's like the new thing that's coming out. Yeah. And
probably our first podcast that we recorded, it was the exact opposite.
Right.
Like a year ago.
Yeah. So some of the predictable aspects aren't so predictable right now, which, to your point, makes us really want to be conservative in some of the things that we're doing. Now, we're talking about two things at once. The deals that we already have in place that we made with the information we had 2-3 years ago. We still have to sell those things that we committed to then. We've made lots of deals under COVID assumptions.
Sure.
And growth assumptions.
Yeah. And most of them work.
Yeah. But we are really committed to making sure that we don't get stuck with anything, as this market is just so fluid right now. Yeah. So
let me go back to the annual part of it. Yeah. Because what we don't want to do and what we won't do is try and predict something that we don't have. So in a 12-month period, what we're really aligned on is trying to understand what's going to happen with the highest probability and starting there. And so
Yeah.
we are not going to predict growth.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say we'll just take this region here, and let's just call it 5 communities that we have under contract.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to predict 7 that we don't, 2 more that we don't have under contract.
Yeah, so we classify them as controlled, and then within the controlled bucket, there's shovel-ready controlled. Those are guarantees.
Right.
That if we can sell it, we can build it.
Yes.
And that's what we try to base the bulk of our decision making
like
on.
Either they're developed already, like the developer, if it's another developer and not us that's working on it, like they're already working on it. We have a schedule from them. We know when those lots are going to be delivered.
Hopefully just the paving needs to be done or something.
Or we're just actively selling in something right now, and we have a full 12-month runway of that phase. And so we know there's a bunch of those neighborhoods that we're just going to go and predict the pace.
Yeah.
And we have those lots. And let's just say if it's 550 homes, 300 of those at a minimum are already
locked in.
There.
Yeah.
They're there, like ready to be built.
Yep.
And then another 100, we're saying they're going to come on in the time frame that we were promised.
Yeah. Even with cushion most of the time. We padded a little because nothing in land development ever happens on time, and we know that for a fact.
And then maybe another 50 of them, we're just going back and forth on a contract right now. But the timeline is committed from the developer.
Yeah.
And then you have the other ones where maybe we're not going back and forth on too much, but we have a framework and we just feel really good about it.
It's a developer you work with a lot.
Handshake deal.
Yeah.
That you might as well say it's going to happen.
But you're not banking on the ones, this is the first deal you're ever doing with them, or in a brand new, I don't know, area or even like township or something that we've never done anything in. That's a totally different story.
So I just wanted to clarify, like for that 12-month budget, the 2025, we are going to hold fast to the stuff that we know.
That's exactly right. And I'm glad you said that, because that's kind of what I was trying to say is as we've budgeted in different times, different years, we've had different tactics for it. And this is what we're working on right now, exactly how you defined it. But that also means that we have taken a really hard look at all of our opportunities that are coming up.
Yeah, we've kicked some out.
Exactly. So I just wanted to bring that up too, that's part of it in order to predict, is to not rely on the things that we can't be sure of.
Yeah. And it's so difficult to describe the business niche that we're in with the markets that we serve.
Yeah.
Because they are vastly different even within our own company.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have 3 offices with 3 very different markets, and within those 3 offices there's multiple markets, right? And we're not in, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a different state that doesn't have, there's certain states that just don't have like a national home builder presence, you know?
Are there?
Yeah.
North Dakota?
Yeah, probably. What's that one country, state? Nebraska? Yeah. We have like these markets that are just in a 30-minute drive. They're very different.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, where we live 30 minutes east is all public home builders.
Right.
These massive companies, you name all the people in the top 10, they're all there. Right? And we don't like to play in that playing field. Right? We'll get some opportunities here and there, but that's just not worth it. And then you go into our capital, Harrisburg, where they like to come up and play in our sandbox a little bit, but they're not a massive threat, comparatively speaking. Like, we hit a wall going east here. Right. And then you have State College, we're technically the largest home builder there. But there's massive constraints out there as well.
Right. Well,
with developers.
With the public home builders comes a lot of trade base
and developers.
Mm-hmm. And without them, it is a struggle to get consistency and partners with both of those things.
Yeah. So I say all of that because the geographic swath that we cover is massive to cobble together the amount of volume that we want to do and need to do in some cases. But going back to your point about taking a hard look at things, these concentric circles that we've kind of built with our home bases and going out and out and out. Every time you go out further, there's new opportunities to make connections with developers and trade bases and markets and literally understanding. I mean, I was just talking to some people on the team here locally a few minutes ago, and I was telling them they were naming towns I've never heard of that we have land in. And I said, I've never been there. I need to go out.
Yeah.
Because now I'm in charge again.
Yeah.
And I got to understand. And there's a lot of education when, it's an hour away, but it might as well be like Canada.
Right.
To me.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't even know the name of the town. Or the county. And there's opportunity there, but you just need to get really familiar with it. And the less you know, the more conservative you need to be.
Yes.
And once you get into these kind of outer areas of the regions, again, with the less sophisticated developers and stuff, you need to do more work for stuff. You're not getting like the delivered, beautiful, finished lot. You're getting it as is.
Yeah.
And along with that, the municipalities, the townships, the counties are less sophisticated. And
you need to do more hand-holding.
You need to do more hand-holding. You need to reset your expectations. Like,
on
timing. They might turn around a permit in like 4 weeks instead of 4 days.
They're only open on Thursday from 11 to 3.
You can't just drive there with your permit package and assume that they're open.
Right, exactly.
So
especially in the fall.
Yeah. It's a fascinating sociological experiment when you try and go build houses in a different area.
But the crazy part of everything that you just said, to bring it back to budgeting, everything that you just mentioned is a factor when we're putting this together.
Yeah.
If we're making that stretch, breaking into a new area, we have to work on personnel.
It requires resources.
Yeah. Do we have someone to sell the product? Do we have someone to build the product? Do we have someone to manage the township?
Yeah, the operations, the construction.
Right. So is it community that we're going to get 6 settlements in? Is it worth it?
Yeah. And those are the really hard decisions when you have a machine, because what we have here is a machine, and it needs to be fed a certain amount of food each week.
Right.
And at some point, when your greatest resource and your greatest asset is your people, you need to consider that first when you're making decisions.
Sometimes we pick up a project because we want to feed the machine.
Yes.
Not because it's the best idea, but just because it will be that stepping stone to the next one.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to create these really swinging bridges to get there.
Yeah. Well, and I think I was talking to Matt Caffrey yesterday about this very thing, where I wanted to do a little bit more of a detailed, whatever you want to call it, post-mortem, job autopsy on each project as a community, and very specifically list reasons why we're willing to possibly go outside our guardrails.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
So everybody understands, like, we have everybody knows we want to make great money. You want to have this margin going into it and a predictable expectation on the money you're going to make. And sometimes you make very clear decisions that are outside those bounds.
Yeah.
Where you go, I want to build a bridge, like you said, to this area, and this is an opportunity that gets us there.
Yep.
And I already know that the money we're going to make on it is not the number one concern. It could be the third.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
just want to establish ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and not break even, but we're lowering our standards for this very specific
Mm-hmm.
reason. And there's other ways you can do that,
Mm-hmm.
where you go outside of your norm.
Yeah.
Where you say, in a perfect world, we're buying lots with the absorption that we predict.
Mm-hmm.
If we sell 2 houses a month, we're going to buy the equivalent of 2 lots a month from
Yep.
a developer. And it's just going to go boom, boom, boom. We're not carrying all these vacant lots. In some cases, the only way you can get a deal that you want or need is you need to crank it up a little bit.
Yep.
And you say, okay, builder A is offering this. We can get the deal, but we need to double the absorption. Not the sales absorption, but possibly just
the takedown
the
absorption.
purchase absorption.
Yeah.
And so we know, baked into this deal, we're going to be carrying vacant lots over a period of time that we won't have the capacity to sell at that pace. And we've done that.
Yeah.
And in our extreme path to growth over the last few years, that's been a philosophy taken on by the regions. And what we're doing now is we're just trying to get back to the predictable side.
Well, what's interesting about this analysis that we're doing right now is, to your point, we're not striving for perfection. We're not trying to say every deal has to have that perfect absorption and that perfect profitability. And, it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's more about the percentage of the total.
Yeah.
How many of our opportunities are going to be predictable?
Yeah.
And how many are necessary evils?
Right.
And you should always have more of the predictable
Yeah.
than the things that are going to get you to the next. If it's flip-flopped, which is the case in a few of our areas right now, we have a lot of work to do to get it right side up again.
Right. And sometimes it's speaking out both sides of your mouth.
Sure.
Where you're saying, for the greater good of everything, there's a lot of factors in why you make certain decisions on certain neighborhoods throughout the cycle of building and selling. Right now, in a couple neighborhoods, I'm just telling everybody, whatever it takes to get that inventory down. I'm not saying ignore the numbers, but I'm saying ignore the numbers, because that success or failure was baked in on the purchase.
Yeah.
So now let's fight another day here.
Right.
And it's really hard because a lot of people, I'm not just saying our employees, but people in general, they want to know the rules.
Yeah.
And in
We
our
do
business, right, in our business, there's a lot of art to it.
Yeah.
And because nothing is equal. You don't get equal opportunity to purchase stuff.
Right.
Never, ever. And what people want is they say, well, we have this many people and we have these many lots, and so we should be able to just, go out on an even scale and know that at some point, if we get more lots, we're going to have more people. I wish it was that easy. I wish it was that easy.
We wouldn't be here if it was that easy.
Yeah. But to tie it back to the budgeting process, right now, I think you made a great point. The home base is always trying to break it down to predictable and what we can have, what we have in the bag, and then always layering in the risk tolerance that you want to have on top of that.
Right, exactly.
And right now we're just trying to be super slow and intelligent and conservative, knowing that we just want to have this great position if the market does move down.
Yeah.
That we're the people on top of the hill picking and choosing the opportunities.
Yeah. The idea here is we expect to grow. We expect that there's going to be the next big thing for us. We're going to get there. But the stabilization that we're taking right now is the key to doing that.
Yeah.
And what we talked about this entire time is the top line, the revenue, that we're predicting how much we have,
Mm-hmm.
what we think we will be basing all the rest of the decisions on.
Yeah.
And in an effort to align that same thought process with predictability, with trying to be as successful as possible, a lot of other underlying projects have come about, not just the land and the predicting and how are we positioning ourselves for 2025. How are we going to be fiscally responsible on the expense piece of it?
Yeah, it all ties. I mean, it's a direct correlation.
Right. So at the same time, we're working on the settlements and our revenue and our gross profit, net contribution, all those things. That's happening on the regional side. And then on the admin side, on the home office side, we are making sure that we are creating the guide rails, like you were saying, in the land. We're doing the same for expenses.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of conversation and understanding that we haven't been clear for the employee base in general on what is success with expenses.
Sure.
What is the budgeting process? So out of this is coming a whole host of very clear policies to say, this is how we want to spend our money. This is going to be the way that this is what you have to look forward to next year.
Yeah, deliberate.
Yeah.
It's deliberate. And I think that we can confidently say that if somebody has some clear expectations around spending or expenses that are much lower the one day later, but they're very clear than the previous day, people would still pick the clear, even though it's like less than doing whatever they want.
Right.
At least they just know.
Right. And it's consistent. And everybody is on the same team then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you're just pushing to get better. You're measuring against something. With a greater influence that you and I have had over the last few months, I think people are rallying around that in a really good way in terms of just those expectations, because we are always going to be fiscally responsible ourselves.
Yeah.
And now it's just more of a cultural norm here than maybe it was before. And it's all good things, but at the end of the day, some of the stuff, it just feels like austerity. It feels like you're just, trying to save, and our job is to communicate it's save for a reason.
Well, that's exactly right. And that, again, is part of the clarity with it. It is not, we're finally at the point, and this is what's getting exciting now. It's not just cut, or take away.
We can't.
Right. Now we're at the point where we've gotten clarity on what the business needs to do to operate.
Right.
So now we're left with more. So there's more opportunity for ideas. Like we're talking a lot about how do we create revenue now that's outside of being stuck with land deals. How do we use some of now that we've got some guidelines in place and we have predictable spending, now we know how much we have to spend and give when it comes to employee experience, healthcare, our benefit renewals coming up. That's all going to change. There's so many great things that are now on the horizon after we've been silent for 2 months because we've been working on all of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that it's really hard to discuss constantly in a public forum, too, what you're trying to work on.
Yeah.
Because you always want to set proper expectations and, make sure that you're communicating things clearly at the right times.
Yeah.
But, the plan always has been to show everybody with a level of transparency that every decision that we make is hopefully equally pleasant for all involved at the end of the day.
Right, because it's thoughtful and there's a reason.
Yeah. It's given us this wonderful opportunity to try to reward our wonderful employees in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure that our real winners are winning at the top.
Yeah.
And
That's the exciting thing.
yeah.
That to me is
this is
like
why this stuff matters. Is we might have fewer opportunities in certain areas, but I'm going to show you why the few opportunities can be a lot better with the team that put those forth. So
yeah. And the coming back to budgeting again. So we've got our whole we've laid out what it looks like for our revenue, how you came to or are coming to the numbers to say what settlements we're going to strive for next year. We've talked a little bit about some of the way that we're going to predict expenses, and the whole budgeting
experience
season this year is also exciting for me. We've got dates and milestones in place from now until January 15th that says this is who is finishing what and when and what the outcome's going to be. We've got a great team working on this. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Maybe that's our shout out right now since we're talking about the budget. We need to shout out Matt and TRG.
Start with an M and a T.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they have just really concentrated on how to give each person that owns a part of the P&L, what the tools that they need to properly predict what we're making and spending next year.
Right. And I think in some ways we'll be less inclusive this year in a good way, meaning there's
real stakeholders.
There's a number of people who were involved, in years past that they just either didn't have the desire or the skill set or the ownership of influencing budget. And it was really unwieldy for them to be involved and possibly a little unfair, because
absolutely.
And I'll go to why we're so excited about this budget year is because we have a couple guys in Matt and Tim who that's their wheelhouse and they really love it. And Joe has taken a back seat on the budgeting because he loves the accounting side.
Yeah, he should get a shout out too.
Yeah.
For steering the ship up to this point.
Yeah.
And
outside of what he wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it was just like, oh, you like this? Okay, great. You can have it. I'm going to go over here and do the debits and credits.
Yeah. To have that much horsepower concentrating on the things that they love is a game changer.
Yeah. Well, and for me too, I mean, I love the financial planning side.
Yeah.
I do not love the accounting side.
The accounting that you have a degree in.
Yeah. But within that, I mean, Matt Frost has the same degree, but there's pieces of it, and I would be much more like him. I love it because of the plan. That's what I love.
Yeah.
I love putting it out there and then getting, a specific execution plan around it. And so, because I love predictability. Yeah. I love to be able to expect what you lay out. And I like giving myself room too. I would never. I do not like budgeting that's got a big stretch in it with unknowns.
Yeah.
I really like to know what the conservative piece is.
Well, our definition of a budget is a business plan.
Yeah.
So the idea is laying out the business plan for the next year, including all of the decisions that we want to make for the business. Just happens to have money tied to it.
Yes.
So we're saying we know we want to build this many homes, but we also know these are all of the things that we want to do to grow the business behind the scenes. So we're budgeting for a new website. We're budgeting for a renovation. We're budgeting for all of the things that is going to take us to the next level the year after that. So it's planning not just from the revenue and home building side, but it's planning from the business side at the same time.
Yeah.
And that is the part that is so great about it, is just execute on the plan. You put all this thought and effort into it and all this work now.
Yeah. Next
year, we're just executing the plan.
Yes.
We laid it out already.
It's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's more than it's just way more than an accounting thing.
Oh, well, that's why I keep saying it's the business plan.
We need
everybody.
to constantly promote that kind of language. It's not just a spending guideline.
No.
It's a business plan.
Exactly. It's you looking forward to the next year and understanding what moves you're going to make to make progress in the area of the business that you control.
Right. Very simply, too, because I'm very fond of like personal finance, from a budgeting standpoint.
Yeah.
And what I always try to tell people is if you have a personal finance budget on a monthly basis, you have money coming in and money going out, very rarely would you ever in perpetuity go outside of that, because what happens, you'll go bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right? So in simple terms, if you set a budget and ignore it personally, you can't do that with a business.
Right.
So that's why it's so critical. It's like the money needs to be in the account, essentially.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so... with a business, though, you have more leeway than personal finance. So, because you have more time, generally. But the fundamentals are the same. You need to stick to your budget as much as possible.
Yeah.
So you can be predictable.
Especially at a business our size, if every stakeholder who has a $500 to a $2 million budget goes outside of that
by a couple hundred thousand, you get sideways very quickly.
There's going to be big problems.
Yep.
Yeah. But going back to the business and the planning piece of it from a practical level, it impacts every single aspect of every department.
Yeah.
So if we know we're building, marketing is my thing, so I can speak to that very easily. I was just doing the budget before we walked in here, which is why we're talking about it. I know we're predicting 500 whatever houses next year, which means this is how much manpower it will take from the marketing side to execute on that.
Right.
I have the decision to say, okay, do I have a third-party resource in case we exceed that? Do I plan for another graphic designer? Do I, what's my thought process if I'm looking at the monthly predicted settlements and they start increasing the second half of the year? What's the plan to accommodate for that?
Right.
Because you can't get behind on your workload in marketing, or you won't sell as many homes as what you're predicting.
Right. You need a couple different outlets.
Right.
And you also want to, when you have a business plan or a budget, you want to understand what it looks like if you would miss it or exceed it both ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
What's my next step if for some reason our numbers are trending down over the year?
Right. Yeah.
What levers can I pull?
You have to have your must-haves and then your nice-to-haves.
Yeah.
As your little cushion,
Right.
Maybe we have in the budget next year that some of this beautiful equipment that we're speaking into right now needs to be upgraded.
Right.
Well, that's a nice to have if it's still working.
Right.
So you might want to leave that to later on in the year or something like that, and until kind of have a better idea of if you have to pull one of those levers.
Yeah, the line items, the one sacred thing is when you build a business plan is the one line item is your personnel. That's sacred. So
yes.
You have to build everything around. You can't just assume, well, if things go down, we'll just lose some of that line item.
No.
Right? So
Correct.
It's all the other things. And then you have to be careful about, it's like a really fine line. If we are predicting growth in that period, that if you might need to hire needs to be really carefully planned out, because you want to set that person up for success.
Right.
And have
enough training
the work
time
to grow into.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't want to be caught in that situation where you're overstaffed and then you overcommit. So the new equipment's a great example because that's something that is just an easy decision depending on what the information is that you have.
Right.
But you don't do that with personnel, obviously. And so, yeah, it's a tricky thing. And all that's being said with the mindset that you want and hope that all your people that you have are growing throughout that period as well and have more opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
To grow. So it's a fun experience.
Yeah.
Until you're done and you're like, okay, I was too conservative. Now I need to add some stuff in here so we can see some growth. But
yeah, I think we've covered budgeting. What do you think?
Yeah,
I mean, we could probably talk about it for 5 hours.
Yeah, the fundamentals. I think that's important. But yeah, it's business planning.
Yeah,
business planning season, which is fun.
I like that.
Yeah, so we kind of shouted out already.
But I'd like to, now that we've already had 3 people, just also say thank you, Deb, for leading the charge.
Yes, Deb.
Thank you, Deb.
I mean, we could say thank you, Deb, for everything.
I know.
Next year will be 40 years
Jeez,
for Deb.
That's awesome.
40 years in company. I have a challenge, kind of interesting one, where, I'm always, like, my challenges typically depend or centered around interpersonal things, challenging relationships and that kind of thing. And this is one of them. But as I've been taking over, leading some teams here, we have a lot of wonderful people. And there's a lot of new people. When I say new, I mean like less than 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? So they're still trying to understand the culture and all that. And I would say my challenge would be, if you are uncertain about how to have a conversation with somebody, just have it.
Yeah.
I'm just encouraging people to kind of go outside, draw outside the lines a little bit and be like, I really just want to get on the same page with this person. And it's always a good idea to talk about that with your leader. But at the same time, there's nothing better than getting on the same page one-on-one with somebody.
Yeah.
And saying, I'm just not vibing right now with this person. I'm just going to tell them,
Yeah.
Let it rip.
Right.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I do know about the vast majority of people in this organization, basically everybody, is that if it's done well, they're going to receive it really well.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a breakthrough. Honesty, no matter what the message is always going to result in great things.
Yeah.
Not that I'm seeing conflict everywhere. I'm just saying it's like a growth thing.
Yeah, I would say...
Challenge yourself to have real conversations.
Right. I think that the spirit with which you're saying all of this is more that people want to be more connected than they are.
Yeah, go deeper.
Because, again, we don't have the dynamic nailed down because of how much change there's been.
Yeah.
And because of the variable of years here.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that there were 100 people hired in 2 years, but then we also have we've got people that have been here for 40.
Yeah, right.
So just instead of waiting to see what it is, you're saying just make the connection.
Right.
And
I mean, I've told people this privately and in small groups too. If you want to know what success looks like, go ask somebody like Deb.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody that's been here 40 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's something there.
Yep.
Ask a John Wisner, 35 years. John D'Angelo, 20-some years. There's a lot of people who have been here a long time and have ridden the markets up and down and the different changes and different leaders. And there's a lot of good examples, and they would love to talk to you about it.
Yes.
All the people that have been here a long time would love to open their door to have a conversation about something that has nothing to do with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just talking to Joe Roslin about this.
Yeah,
this
Joe.
Week.
How long has Joe been here? 20 years.
20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just talking to him about it, like the fact that it's so easy to have these conversations because he's got some newer people on his team.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for him to be, oh,
Yeah.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
I mean, he's our creative director, so he's been in marketing, and he was here before the recession.
Yes.
So, what's the first thing that people start cutting when things get bad? Marketing, right?
He is the last man
Yeah.
standing for 20 years.
Yeah. So, although that's not right, you should never cut your marketing.
No. Never make that mistake again.
Yeah.
So no, that's a great challenge.
Yeah.
Let's get a
it's
little...
more about finding out what the magic is for those people who have been here a long time.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
And you can talk to us.
I mean, yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I don't want to bother you. You're so busy. And I was like, I hate that. I don't like
hearing that either. And every time anyone says that to me, I say, you're busy too.
Right. Yeah.
And if me taking a moment, giving you clarity makes it easier for you to get something done.
Right.
Oh my gosh, all day.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
I say, well, if it would make you feel better about taking up time, then let's schedule it.
That's great.
Like, let's just put it in the schedule.
Yeah.
If you feel like you'll be rushed in this moment,
that's
then
good job.
Let's put it on the schedule, and then we can both feel good about having the time. You know?
When you hear me saying that, I got it from Ben.
Yeah. Just put it on. Let's meet. Maybe it will be next week, but it's important, so we'll put it on the calendar.
No, but the point is with that is being able to tell someone so that you don't feel like you have to rush.
Yeah.
Because that is what I find more than anything else is that anyone who grabs some time is just trying to charge through the conversation as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for anybody either.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah, you both might be inclined to be a little rushed.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Look at you, Mr. Scheduler.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Time Management over here. Working 70 hours.
Captain Time Knots.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, have a great weekend.
Everybody, see you next week.
See you never.